How we doing, everybody? This is That 3-Year-Old Brad, and today I'm be talking about the most influential and probably my personal best horror film of all time, The Shining. Before I start getting into the review, hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It means the world to me. You guys are liking my videos. Subscribe to the channel. You guys are the best. Shining is a 1980 supernatural psychological horror film that is directed by the masterful Stanley Kubrick. It is adopted of the 1977 novel of the same name by Stephen King. To me, this is probably my personal best horror film of all time. I have seen this film about 3 times, as I got the 4K of last year, and I've watched it twice in a row, and I still think it looks marvelous with the remaster. And there's so much more that I have discovered with this film each time I watched it, and this third time around, I feel like I lost everything that I remember from the second time around, because it just goes to show that there's something new, there's something different, and there's something always challenging every time you watch this film. This movie is a sheer certified masterpiece that is all truly done by Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick is probably my personal best director of all time. And the reason for that is the man is a legend because he crafted so many iconic and fantastic movies. But what makes him stand out is he had this perfectionism about him, that he would work long nights and he would make sure that his films extended for the runtime that he wanted. And ended up could be a very, very long movie. But the thing is, he would make the actors and the producers and the technical people working behind the film work tons of hours just to get the right shot. And he does this so frequently in this film, especially with Shelley Duvall and her performance, as she really gives a terrifying and scary and realistic performance that people have kind of given her crap for over the years. But I truly think in the limelight, knowing what he was doing to her, the mental abuse that she was taking, I think she just really gives it her all. The actors were truly tired of making this movie because he had to get the perfect shot, and his direction is absolutely perfect in this film, and there's no other way to do it. Acting in this film is absolutely tremendous. Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, and Danny Lloyd are the main stars in this film, and they absolutely kill it. Jack Nicholson is clearly one of the best actors of all time, and he gives a tremendous, horrific, terrifying, and overall really conflicted and complicated performance that really shows how much range he has, considering of this 2-hour and 26-minute runtime from beginning to end, basically being a completely different character, and steals the show. Danny Lloyd is also giving one of the best child performances I think I've ever seen. He really does give a really genuine and realistic performances, and he really does have to play so many different parts of himself, and he has this imaginary person that he pretends to be, Tony, that he sticks his little finger up and does that. And the voice that he does is really in perfection in this movie. Everything that Danny Lloyd does is really impressive for a childlike performance. Writing in this film is absolutely amazing. And as I was talking about before, it just shows that Stanley Kubrick really gave so much exposition at the beginning of the movie, set in tone of what this movie's going to be like, knowing the background, knowing everything that could be set up for this movie. But then once you start getting into it and the madness starts to happen with the magic and the ghosts and the evil spirits that could be happening with this movie, the film takes itself over, and there really isn't any more expository dialogue that's given throughout. We're only seeing through the characters' dialogue to each other. Most of the film's exposition is through what we see in our eyes and what we can explain is happening, because there's so much of this movie that isn't explained at all, and I think that's what makes it so amazing. But at the same time, that's why critics didn't particularly like it, because it was so challenging and because there was so much ambiguity around it, and it really made you think. It wasn't this straightforward horror film that we see a lot today. This movie kind of focuses itself as more of a drama, but I consider it more of a psychological, disturbing horror that the more you think about, the more you're going to be disturbed. Editing, music, and cinematography are absolutely top-notch in this film. Every frame of this movie is edited so perfectly. I truly do think this might be one of the most perfectly edited movies of all time. Every single shot is woven together so perfectly, and I love the way that so many parts of the building structure, the rooms, the hallways, aren't actually supposed to be related together in a way, because Kubrick and his team actually wanted to make it so that if you're really paying attention to this film, the film structure and the way we see the hallways and the rooms and the structure of the hotel actually doesn't make any sense. And that kind of goes into the theme of the film, that things don't really make any sense. It's allowing for you to decide what is truly happening in this film. Music is truly tremendous. It's definitely one of my favorite scores of all time, and I think it's very underrated in the horror community of their favorite scores. I think this really boosts every scene so well. It has like this classical feel to every scene, because the movie feels old, like a classical movie, and it definitely earns that classic status. I love so many of the themes in this film that really are in the center front of the movie, where you're talking about the effects of alcoholism that the novel does a little bit more of, but it definitely affects in how domestic abuse really can be implicated in so many ways, or the act of denial and the optimism that people may have in their relationships, or even the fact of the mental issues that we may face from domestic abuse, or how alcoholism can affect many of those ways, or how we can the ideas of evil spirits taking us over and we have no control of that fate. I think there's so many interesting ideas that really are so well exploited, but never thrown in your face and never truly explained in the movie about them. You kind of have to make it for yourself through very disturbing and exciting imagery that pops throughout this film. I love the psychological and traumatic horror in this movie. There's so many disturbing and creepy images that pop in with such a great editing. There's so many scenes where Danny's on his little tricycle bike and he sees the two Grey sisters, but then it will cut to them bleeding all over the floor, and then it cuts back to the girls and cuts back to them. Then it cuts to his face just screaming with no noise, and it just drawn out. There's so many great uses of editing and directing and just great horror that's thrilled through, that just leaves that disturbing image sinking into your brain every time you think about it. I think the more and more I think about this movie, and especially the crazy theories that people have come up with, the sudden hidden details they were able to put together, it makes it for all the more disturbing. And it makes me feel like every time I go back, I find something that is equally as disturbing as the last time I saw it. The story itself is great. It's a very simple premise that this family goes to this hotel with a struggling writer, and thing just goes bad. But in reality, there's so much more that's happening. And I think that Kubrick definitely changing from the novel and doing his own thing with it, I think is just awesome. Maybe the fans of the book and Stephen King may hate this, as Stephen King really does not like this movie as an adaptation, but he did say that he did find this movie very disturbing and very complacent of the horror genre. So if you're looking for that, I think you'll be really well enjoyed. To be honest, I was gonna give my meaning of this film to you guys, but I might just make a separate video because there's so much more I have to talk about and the certain specific scenes of that. So if you guys want one of those videos, let me know down below. But I truly really don't know what I think this movie's about, because I think there's so many things that it's about, and that's why I think Kubrick and this film are masterpieces. So everyone makes these analysis videos and really talking about how amazing this movie is and really diving in deep, but I wanted to give a review of how much I truly appreciate and love this film, and I want to encourage you guys to keep rewatching this film, and even maybe you didn't like it, I think you'll find new things to like in your rewatches, because I think there's so much content, I think there's so much material that's in this film that can't just be enjoyed on that first watch. So I'm going to give this film a strong 10 out of 10. Let me know, guys, have you guys seen The Shining? Is it one of your favorite horror movies of all time? Is it one of your worst? Is Dr. Sleep better? Is it a perfect sequel? I want to know anything about The Shining down below. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.